Now tonight we are going to be setting up our website and actually getting WordPress installed, basically trying to get everything set up right up to the point where we could start to build our actual website. But before we can build the website itself or even get WordPress set up on it, we have to set up the domain name on our website hosting account and get all of that properly connected. So that is where I will be beginning tonight. To start with, what you need to do once you get a domain name registered, you need to add it into your website hosting account. To get to your website hosting account, it can kind of depend on what hosting company you are with. If you're using HostGator shared servers, they'll have this Gator and a number as a subdomain of HostGator.com, but you can usually get to these through a primary domain name. If you have set up a primary domain on your web hosting account and you're just simply looking to add additional domain names to your account, then you can simply log in using your existing domain name that you have. Just type in whatever your domain name is. For mine would be like downcomforterguide.com, and simply add a /cpanel onto the end of it. So I could type in downcomforterguide.com/cpanel, and this would get me to my control panel after my domain name was already set up on it. So if your hosting account was set up with a different domain previously, then just simply use that domain to access your control panel. Otherwise, whenever you're setting up your website hosting account for the first time, you'll typically then specify what domain name will be your primary domain for that account. So if this happens to be your first domain ever, then you may not have to deal with this particular step because you'll already be able to access your domain name through the actual domain itself to get to your control panel. But if your domain is not already on your account and you need to add it in, oh, that's cool, Stan. They're running a special right now. Stan's saying if you go to hostgator.com/404, you can get your hosting started for 1 penny. Probably would be for the first month of that, I would imagine. Thank you, Stan. So what you need to do here, assuming you're going to be adding this domain to an existing hosting account that was already set up with a different domain name, you're going to be adding the new domain as an add-on domain. Just look for the domains section and simply click on the add-on domains link here. Now, whether you actually need to use this particular process for this website, for the first website that you're building, you will eventually need to use this at some point when you go to create additional sites. So I still wanted to make sure to actually point out how this is done. So click on add-on domains, and this simply brings up a page for you here where all you have to do is type in the domain name that you want to add, and then it automatically populates the FTP username for you here, as well as the document root for this particular site. And this just controls this username right here. This is how you can log into the site through Control Panel or through an FTP program if you wanted to be able to upload files to the site. The document root here, this is in relation to your primary domain name that you have set up on your account. So the primary domain would actually be just sitting here in this public HTML directory. But what it does to create these additional domains is that it is essentially creating a subdirectory in that main domain name's website, and that subdirectory will be used for this particular site. But it disguises all that when you're actually viewing the site, so it just looks like simply a standalone domain name. So once you have punched in your domain up top here, all you have to really do after that is just provide a password for it and click on the Add Domain button. Now, I actually have this domain already on this account, so I do not need to create it there. So I am not going to actually proceed with completing that particular step of this process. The next thing that you need to do is to go to your domain name registrar. I typically use GoDaddy for most of my domain names, but you could potentially be using a different one. I'm going to be showing you how this works using GoDaddy, but the same concept should really apply to pretty much any registrar that you're going to use. Now, first of all, in the bottom left-hand corner of your control panel, you want to look for these name servers. These name servers right here, there's two of them, are going to be put into your domain name registrar account. And this will point the domain name to your website hosting account. And this allows people to actually type your domain into a browser and land them on your server instead of simply being directed to a parked domain page, for example. So go on over to GoDaddy here. In the menu right here, just go to Products and Domains. Once you're logged into your account, you can see I'm already logged in to the account that I have that has this particular domain name on it. All you need to do is just click on this Manage Now button in the bottom right-hand corner, and this will bring up your list of domain names that you have in your account. So all you need to do is find the domain name that you want and click on it and simply change the name servers here. Now, you can see I already have existing name servers set up. These are actually different name servers from the ones in my control panel. I don't have those copied in. These two name servers here are actually different. You can see this is 8165 and 8166, and this one is actually 2229 and 2230. The reason why I don't actually need to change these, I could. HostGator did some changes with their shared servers not too long ago, and I can actually use either set of name servers, even though I'm only provided with this one set in my hosting account itself. But the main concept here is simply to add in the name server one at a time. So I would take this first one here, the entire line, and copy it and paste it in right here and simply click on the OK button. I could go ahead and click on Add Name Server right here, and it'll bring up a second box for me so I can enter in the second one and then click on OK, and it'll process those changes. But just to ensure that I don't mess up anything right now and block myself from being able to access this site during this webinar, I'm not actually going to make any changes to this at this particular moment, because once you update these name servers on a domain name, the changes may not instantly take effect. Sometimes it can take effect right away for you, but other times it could actually take up to potentially as long as 48 hours for those name servers to properly point over to your website hosting account. So if you ever set these and you're still not able to like immediately go and access your website using your domain name, just simply wait a day and try again, and if need be, wait an additional day after that, and just simply wait for your domain name to actually point to the correct server. So once you can type in your domain name and reach the control panel through your domain name itself, then you can be absolutely sure that your domain name server changes have taken effect. Once this happens, then you can proceed with actually installing WordPress. You don't want to do it before then, because WordPress gets based off of a domain name, and you won't actually be able to use it or access it correctly if you try to set it up before your domain actually points to your server. So once you can get into your control panel using your domain name, just look for the software and services section right here, and there is a quick install button. This quick install, it allows you to install a variety of different kinds of software. Not necessarily all web hosts will have this quick install, but many of them do. HostGator will always include this on shared hosting accounts with them, but I have seen a lot of other hosting accounts that include this as well. Even if they don't include it, there may be something else listed in this software section that would actually still allow you to install WordPress, and worst case, it can still be installed manually if need be. What I'm going to do now is click on Quick Install here, and I'm just going to select WordPress over here in the left-hand sidebar, and then I just click on the Continue button. Now all I have to do is simply select the domain name that I want to make this installation to. Now, ordinarily, I would just select my domain name right here. However, the actual website here, I have just recently built, and I'm going to be walking you guys through the construction of the site, simply doing it on a subdomain so you can actually still see everything getting done, so I'm not just simply talking about how all this works. So all you really need to do to install WordPress here is just provide some basic information. So give them an email address that you want to receive emails relating to your website about. They'll send your initial username and password to this particular email address, for example. Beyond that, go ahead and set a title for your blog. This could just be your main keyword phrase, like Down Comforter Guide, or you could get a little bit more descriptive with it. Ultimately, this is something that you can go back and change in the settings of WordPress once it is actually installed. So you're not making a lifelong commitment here with whatever you're giving for the blog title. So the admin user here, I typically just go with admin. WordPress used to only create the administration accounts using this username, but they now give you the option of creating a different username. Some people like to do something different for the sake of security. Since I have so many WordPress sites, I actually just typically go with admin on all of them and just make sure that I have a really complicated password to go along with it so my accounts can't be cracked into like that. Beyond that, you just have to enter in your first and last name here and then click on the install button, and this will actually start downloading WordPress and installing it on your website for you automatically. Once it's done, it provides you with some additional information down here, and most importantly, you need to pay attention to this little section right here. This has the link for your administration area for your WordPress site that you just created, and it also has your login credentials right here. So I can simply hop over to my site now and type in my information here and log in to my site. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, once I have this actually set up, is I had that automatically generated password being created for my account right here. Now, I usually change this to something, my own unique password, usually a little more complicated than that even. And instead of using just this default generated password, but especially for this particular class, since I'm recording this, I obviously would not want to leave my password the same, because then anybody could simply go and access my website. So before I actually jump into something here, I am going to change my password. All I have to do is go to Users and Your Profile right here, and this has all of the information for my account. What I will typically do is set a nickname for myself right here, so I'm not simply being called admin, just in case my username happens to get displayed on the public website somewhere. Some WordPress themes will show the nickname of the author of whatever page is being viewed, and others will not. So I still simply set this to something relational to my niche, just to be on the safe side. So I will set this as the Down Expert, and then I just select that option to make sure it's publicly displaying my name as my nickname and not using my real name or my username here. So in addition to that, the other reason I wanted to come to this particular page was to set a new password here. So now I could simply go in and set whatever kind of password I want to actually set. I had a typo there. So now that my password is updated, I'm going to return back to the dashboard here. The first thing that you may notice right up here at the top in this big blue box says your Jetpack is almost ready. This is actually coming from a plugin that was installed by default on this particular site. If I go to Plugins and Installed Plugins over here in the sidebar menu, it takes me to this page that shows me what plugins are installed. Now, even though this is a brand new site where I just installed WordPress a couple of minutes ago, there's already 4 plugins that are sitting on here. These are default plugins that WordPress currently decides to install. They actually kind of change what is being installed or what is activated on a site by default kind of as time goes on, and they continue to update WordPress a little bit more. But currently, these are the 4 plugins being included with it. The first one here, Akismet. This is used to protect your blog from comment and trackback spam. However, I'm not a big fan of it, and quite a few other people are also not a very big fan of it. It really doesn't even do a very effective job of protecting from comment and trackback spam. So not only do I not use this, I'm pretty sure they even have some kind of potential fee associated with that, maybe depending on your volume or something. But this is not something I use at all. I actually completely disable comments on my Amazon affiliate sites, so I really don't even worry about it. So I just go through and simply delete the plugin. Now, the next plugin here, Hello Dolly, it's the same type of thing, except this really doesn't even do anything. It shows some little whimsical messages at best. No, Peter, I guess there's not any particular way why I install WordPress like this instead of through Fantastico. I've never actually installed it through Fantastico. I guess this is just the way that I've done it for a long time, many years. And it seems pretty simple and straightforward. So I also feel like it's something I can show others how to do. I sometimes install them manually, like I have a dedicated server and I don't have quick install on my dedicated server, so I just do manual installations over there. So it just kind of really depends, but quick install on all my shared accounts is what I've always used to install WordPress. I'll have to check out Fantastico though and find out a little bit more about that and how that works and see if it would be any different or easier than this particular process. So Hello Dolly here. I just simply delete this plugin as well. Just click on the delete link right here. And then I simply click on yes, delete these files. Stan, is the manual process install process in class notes? I'm pretty sure that I included that in the Techie Masterclass. In the very first class of that particular series. Okay, fantastic. That's good to know, Peter. Fantastico doesn't add the extra plugins. Peter, Ruben is saying that Fantastico has some known security holes. So they seem to be familiar with both methods and are saying that quick install is the better way to go. It's good to know that, it's easier for hackers to get into your sites installed with Fantastico. I'm pretty sure at one point in time quick install had an issue like that, but I'm wanting to say that was at least a couple of years ago. You're quite welcome, Peter. Thank you as well, Ruben. Thanks for that additional information there. So these, thank you. These additional two plugins here that are already activated. One is this Jetpack by WordPress that is causing this blue banner to show up here. I also do not use this particular plugin. What this is doing is allowing you to bring some of the features and connect your account from WordPress.com to a self-hosted WordPress site. A self-hosted WordPress site is using the software from WordPress.org, but on WordPress.com, you can actually go there and create a WordPress blog that it would be a subdomain of WordPress.com, except it uses a slightly different version of WordPress. It's more restrictive. They don't allow you to install your own software and things of that nature. They kind of just say, this is what you get to use. And some of those features are not typically available in self-hosted WordPress, so this Jetpack gives a way to kind of connect that. If you happen to have an existing WordPress.com blog that actually had some kind of traffic on it, it may be worth trying to set this up. However, I don't use WordPress.com at all, and if you're the same way, if you're not using it as well, just completely delete this as well. So this just leaves me with WordPress Supercache. Now, I actually like to keep this plugin. This plugin helps to make your sites run faster. It won't necessarily just speed up your site, period. That's not its intended purpose. But what it does is when you have traffic on your site that is coming on a regular basis, like if you have multiple people visiting your website within the course of a single day, instead of it having to generate the content pages that that person is viewing and continue to do so for each additional person, WordPress Supercache will actually just cache the content of your pages and reserve that information, so it doesn't have to go through all the calculation parts. The calculation stuff just simply involves WordPress and the plugins that you use and whatever theme you might be using on the site. All those different things have their own coding, and all that coding has to get run every single time a page is loaded on the public site. So this plugin helps to overcome not all of that script loading, but at least some of it. And especially the busier your site is, the more helpful this particular plugin will be for you. Now, initially, I'm not really making use of this. It's not necessarily important to have on the site right away, because I don't need the pages getting cached while I'm trying to build the website, essentially. Sometimes you may actually notice that like a change you just made maybe doesn't show up on your live website immediately. If you ever see that happen, it's probably because of this particular plugin. You could simply deactivate it and come back when your site is complete and activate it again. Or if you experience any issues like that, just click on this delete cache button that is right up here in this top menu bar. This will wipe out everything that's already stored by this plugin and allow it to all be created again. So then when you revisit a page, it will create all that information fresh and not give you something that was just stored from a previous visit on that particular page. The next thing that I do after I have got these initial plugins set up is I will go into the WordPress post page right here. Just click on post in the menu, and as you can see, there's already this default post called Hello World that is set up on my site. Just in case you've never seen a brand new WordPress site before, this Hello World post is just an example, basically. They tell you you can either edit it or simply delete it and do whatever you want. And they also have kind of a sample comment on this particular post as well. So I simply just go in and trash this default Hello World post. Now, the same thing goes with your pages here. There is a default sample page that is already built on the site, and I simply trash this sample page as well. Now, anything that you trash here, just to point out to you, it still exists on the site. It's just not able to be viewed on the live site. So you could simply come into your trash and decide to restore it to your live site if you wanted to. Perhaps you trashed something that you didn't mean to trash, or you could simply delete it permanently. Once you click on that delete permanently, it is gone forever. There's no way you can restore it at that point. But these initial pages that are created, they're not important to keep, and really I just kind of find them to be a minor annoyance kind of to getting this site actually set up. So the next thing that I go and do is to set all the different settings that I need to get this site set up how I want it to be working. I go to this settings tab right here. There's a number of different pages in here, and I'm going to be discussing not all of them with you this evening, but at least a number of the most important ones, all the ones that I like to visit when I am first setting up my site here. Now, right up at the top, you can see my site title here. This site title was the site title that I already had entered during the quick install process. So whatever I entered here for my blog title, this gets shown up as my site title right here. So if I wanted to make any changes to it now or at any point in the future, this is where I would go to do so. The main thing that I'm visiting this page for is to set this tagline. This tagline should just be a short description of what your site is about. It doesn't even really have to be a complete sentence. You just want to essentially try to redescribe what your site title is, because most likely this is what your website is going to really be about. So I try to just rephrase it in a different way. I'm going to say help you pick out the best bedding products for your personal needs. It's relational to my niche. It uses some keywords that are relational to my niche, like bedding, for example, but it's not repeating any of the words in my target keyword phrase up here. I don't want to try to get into keyword spam territory here. So I want this to be a more natural phrase or description or sentence for my site here, rather than just using blatant keyword phrases. So once I have set this, I just go down here and click on the Save Changes button, and then that's automatically set on my live site. You can see right here underneath the title where it says just another WordPress site, this is where my tagline shows up. You can see when I refresh the page that got replaced with the custom text that I entered. Now you might wonder, why is this saying 404 not found here in my page? This is actually because I wiped out the default pages that were on my site. This will get corrected eventually, but for now I'm just going to go ahead and leave it as is. It doesn't really matter whether you have those default pages on there or not. You're not going to have traffic on your sites until you actually start building some real content there. And honestly, I prefer if those default pages didn't even have a chance at getting indexed by a search engine, for example. So the next thing that I do is go down to this reading link. Now, on this particular page, there are a number of different options here, but there's actually a whole chunk of options that are not being shown. And these options I will actually be getting back to in a future class, but this page is the page that you would visit to set a customized page that you create to be the home page of your site. So this doesn't show up as 404 anymore. But for now, since there are not any pages that exist on this site, it doesn't even give me that option of setting something here. So this page will actually change a little bit once you have a page on your site that could potentially be set as the home page. So again, I will be revisiting this again in the future. But for now, the reason why I wanted to come here is for this particular setting. For each article in a feed, show either full text or the summary. Each of your WordPress sites has a feed on it. Now, seeing as how I already deleted the content on this site, I don't think this is going to pull up anything. I probably should have done this first. But just to show you, like demo.downcomforterguide.com/feed would, or should at least, give me a page. Yeah, it's not giving me anything here. That contains all of the content on my site. I'm actually going to go to the main site here. No, it's still not doing it. Anyways, WordPress does create a feed for all the pages that you create. I'll have to pull that back up later once I actually have some stuff on this site to show you guys. But that feed can either contain the full text of each of your pages of content, or it could just contain the summary. Now, a lot of people know, a lot of other marketers in particular, know that WordPress is heavily used to create content-based websites, and in particular, affiliate type of websites. So there are actually people out there that have scripts that will go through WordPress feeds and try to pull out content from them. So I try, yeah, it did, Peter. I'm not quite sure why it did that. I'm going to have to look back into that. But unless they happen to have changed something in the last couple of versions, but I really don't see why they would have. But basically what I want to do is just restrict the full text from being displayed in that particular feed. It's just a precautionary measure, really, just to keep people from getting all of my content. And if for some reason that feed was getting syndicated on another website somewhere, using the summary can help to ensure that traffic viewing your feed actually ends up on your website, because the summary will give them a reason to click through to your actual website to read all of it, instead of already getting everything up front that they were looking for. Now, on this particular website, since I'm just building a demo here, and I don't want to run into potentially duplicate content type of penalties, I'm actually going to block search engines from this particular site by clicking on this checkbox. However, this is not something that you want to do on your own sites. I always leave my sites visible to search engines even from day one, so they can kind of see my site being built instead of just all of a sudden seeing this complete website sitting up there. I kind of like it to be a little more natural than that. So the next thing that I move on to here is this discussion page. The discussion page actually lets me control the comment system in WordPress. Now, the reason why that plugin, Akismet, even existed, why it was included with WordPress, is because WordPress does have a major spam problem when it comes to comments. There is an automated way, essentially, that people can have a script just go around to different WordPress-based sites and submit comments. And the funny thing about it is they're not even visiting the websites. They're simply beaming the information for a comment from the script to the website. They never actually visit the website itself. Yeah, it may just, okay, it came up for you in a different browser. It may just, I'm not quite sure why it would have redirected like that when I did it. Peter's talking about the feed. Let me try this out real quick. Yeah, I'm getting it too. Like you can see here, for example, I'm just on the full domain right here, downcomforterguide.com/feed. It's an XML feed, and it just contains all the information about the pages on your site, and it can actually contain the full content of the pages on your site if the feed isn't set up correctly. Oh, the demo came up now as well. Maybe it's Firefox that just doesn't allow the feed to be opened directly. I typically use Firefox, but I also have like Internet Explorer and Chrome that I use for a variety of testing purposes as well. So thank you, Peter, for pointing that out. Now, on this discussion page here, what I'm looking to do, since there's a big problem with comment spam in WordPress and even trackback spam for that matter, is I simply disable commenting throughout my entire website. And if you want to, you can also completely disable trackbacks as well here with this particular setting. Trackbacks are not necessarily something I worry too much about. They don't seem to be as heavily spammed as the comments are. So I will typically allow those because sometimes those trackbacks may actually be good, and I can still simply manually approve those when they come in. But what I will do here is to click on this checkbox to make sure it is not selected here for allow people to post comments on new articles. This prevents comments from happening on any pages that you create from this point into the future. But if you already had pages on your site, when you disable this particular setting right here, comments may still actually be enabled on those old pages. So according to this right here, these settings may be overridden by for individual articles. There are actually some comment controls all the way at the bottom of the page editor. But instead of going into each of the individual pages like that, what you can actually do is just select this option right here, automatically close comments on articles older than 14 days. And you can just change this to 1 or even 0 days. And this will automatically close out commenting throughout your site. So once you're done with those changes, just scroll down to the bottom and save them again. And this basically keeps you from having to worry about comment spam completely because you're just simply disabling comments on the entire site. Typically on these Amazon affiliate sites, you won't actually get people that come in and leave real comments for you. It's just typically going to be spam unless you have a really busy site that is offering more of a personal approach to how you're trying to sell products, for example. More blog-oriented type of websites seem to get real comments on them more frequently simply because of the content that's actually on those pages. It's typically some kind of opinion-based information piece, and it, helps to get people talking about it. They're kind of inclined, so to speak, to want to say something after they read a piece. Well, on these Amazon affiliate sites, you typically do not have that same type of reaction. And when you do, when you have somebody that comes along that would actually leave a real comment, it's once in a blue moon. So it's really just not worth the time to even try to mess with, because you'll be getting dozens and dozens of spam comments every single day on these sites. And maybe once every 6 months to a year, you might get a real comment that comes through. So for the daily moderation and time you have to put forth to disapprove or approve all those, it's really just not worth it for the good random comment that might happen to come through. Right, Ruben, like selling books, which people recommend. You know, there would definitely be certain situations where commenting could possibly be helpful like that. So, you know, just kind of leave it up to your own discretion. If you want to try it out on a site, leave them enabled for a little while just to see what exactly I'm talking about. You can do that and always simply go back in and disable them later. Just again, you know, if you already created the content on your site, make sure you go through and close off the comments on your old articles using this particular setting then, if you decide to go back in later and disable everything. So the next thing that I do is to visit this permalinks page right here. Now, the permalinks settings on a site, these actually determine the URLs of the different pages that you create on the site. You can see here they have a bunch of different common settings that you could select. The one I'm interested in is post name right here. This just makes the URL get set based on the title of whatever page I'm creating. This helps with search engine optimization. It also helps with just simply making my page URLs human readable. It helps with indexing those pages in search engines, and it would also help with people bookmarking those pages, for example, and trying to return to them later. This makes a lot more sense than this, for example. So once I have set this as the post name, then I simply just click on the Save Changes button down here, and this automatically takes effect on my site. Now, I'll show you guys a little more about how this actually works once I move along in a future class to building pages on the actual site. Clinton, you have a non-Amazon site that has hundreds of comments already. Are they real comments, I guess? Or do they seem spammy? If you have an existing site that's getting great comments, you know, I probably wouldn't close them off, but if they do seem to be mostly spam, it might be helpful if you find yourself just disapproving the comments that come in all the time. So, you know, I would really just kind of gauge that on a case-by-case basis. If there is some good content in there in those comments, it's good to have comments if they are real comments and aren't just existing to try to link out to another website, for example, because the comments can help to build extra content for you that you don't have to write a word to create. But if you're not getting that kind of comment, then, you know, it's just not worth the trouble weeding through all these junk comments just to find one decent one, you know, once in a blue moon or something. Yes, Stan, you can do that, actually. Stan is asking if you could just allow comments on one page rather than the entire site. Once you have comments disabled here for the entire site, it doesn't necessarily disable the comments on everything. Your existing pages on the site would still be enabled for comments if they were previously enabled. But then if you go to create a new page, oh wait, here it is, discussion. Down here at the bottom, let me show you that a little bit slower. Whenever you're on a page, whether you're creating a new page or editing an existing page, one thing that a lot of people may not realize is there, and this actually exists on a lot of pages in the WordPress administration system, not just this page creation page, is this little tab up here that says Screen Options. You click on this and it'll tell you different parts of the page that you can actually show. So this discussion and the author box right here, these can be enabled or disabled, so they may not have been shown by default. So if you're not seeing this right away, come up to the screen options and simply enable discussion, and then you could simply allow comments on this particular page even when they were turned off for the entire website. And the same thing really goes for the trackbacks and the pingbacks right here as well. So these particular settings right here are for the entire website, but then on each individual page, these settings can override the site-wide settings just for this specific page here. Let's see, I already completed the permalinks page for you guys right before I was showing you that. There are a couple of other pages in here. You have like this writing page, but I honestly don't use this writing page too horribly often. There are these update services where you could add these different ping services where it'll just notify these sites every time you publish content on a page. That would really be the only one particular part of this writings page that I really ever use. Media just involves the pictures that you actually upload. There's different settings controlling those pictures, like the size that the thumbnails are created in, and the medium and the large size for the different preset dimensions that they give you, and whether those uploads are organized into month and year based folders or not. But typically, I really just leave all this as it is already set here in most situations. The other one page here worth pointing out is for the Super Cache plugin. If you have certain things about this plugin, maybe you want it to cache pages more often or less often. If you're not coming through and updating your site every day, you may not need it to cache the new pages every single day. So I at least wanted to point out where to find all the different settings for this particular plugin, just in case you need to make some changes to that. The next thing that I go to do on a site, at this point, my site is at least initially set up how I want it to. It still doesn't really look any different, but I at least have my title and my tagline set up and have all of my default settings and content and everything set up or, cleared out from the site. So this site is ready for me to continue with adding in my own stuff to it at this point. So the first thing that I will typically go to do is to add a theme to the site. I'm not a big fan of this default 2013 or really even the 2012 theme. that they had before that. So I actually go here to this Install Themes tab, and I like to use a theme that is called Weaver 2. I've been using Weaver 2 ever since it was just Weaver. Weaver 2 offers a lot of different customization options, so you can really adapt this particular theme to work on pretty much any kind of site you would want, because you can change up the design of it to, fit whatever it is you're trying to go for on a site. So I just simply install and activate this theme, and this takes me to the administration page for the theme. You can see right here down at the bottom, I have all of these different sub-themes that are available to me. And these are basically just pre-built designs that are already set up within Weaver. And I can choose one of these sub-theme designs to use on this particular site. If you don't find something here that is maybe exactly what you were looking for, it doesn't mean that Weaver can't create a site that looks how you might want it to look. What I would recommend to do, if you don't like the look of any of these, is to select the one that has the layout that is the way you want it. You can kind of tell the layout of these different themes kind of varies from one to the next. This one has the sidebars on the left over here. This one has the sidebars on the right. And there's kind of a wide variety of mixes and different combinations in between those for these other ones. So pick one that has the right display that you want. And you can always go through and change the actual colors for any one of these given sub-themes. So I actually like to use 2011 Light for a lot of my sites, or at least to base it on this particular sub-theme to start with, because I like the way that it's laid out. It's something that a lot of people are familiar with, the particular layout of this site, and also feel like it offers enough customization options to do what I am looking to do on these Amazon sites. So all I have to do is select my sub-theme right here and click on this Set to Selected Sub-Theme button. And now if I return to my public site, it is completely changed for this new theme now. So there are a lot of different things that you can do with this theme. I was mentioning different customization options that are available. If you click on Main Options right here, there are all these different tabs that relate to a specific part or a general type of a part of your website, like the general appearance and the layout and the fonts. And some will control like your links and your content and the menus and the header and the footer. So any part of your site that you want to change, maybe you're looking at it here and you're like, I don't like the colors being used in the menu right here. So how would I go and change that? Just go over to menus and I can simply set new colors to be used for my menus, the text colors and the background colors and even the color that shows up when I'm hovering over a menu item. All this stuff is easily customizable within Weaver, so you can kind of adjust it to fit the look of any site that you might want to create. So this is kind of one of the main reasons why I like to use this theme. It has a lot of versatility to it. So I find myself being able to use it with pretty much any site that I want to create, because it can be easily modified to suit whatever I'm trying to achieve on a site. One of the reasons why I wanted to come here was to point out one thing in particular. Over here in this footer tab, something that I will find myself doing with basically every site I create is to click on this Hide Powered By tag. Technically, according to the rules of WordPress, to have a free theme or a plugin included in their repository, you're not supposed to have these powered by links automatically shown on a site. If I flip over to the public site over here, you can see it says proudly powered by WordPress. That's fine, but right here, Weaver 2 by WordPress Weaver, and this actually goes to weavertheme.com. Technically, this is not supposed to be enabled by default on any theme or plugin that is available for free through WordPress. But it's really not that big of a deal. All you have to do is just click on this little checkbox right here and click on the Save button, and you can return to the public site and refresh it. And you see it not only got rid of the link to the Weaver website, but it also got rid of the link to WordPress as well. So this wipes out additional outgoing links in the footer of my site that I simply do not want there, because I don't want to lose traffic or potentially search rankings to those particular websites. So that is the main thing that I'm looking to do here. This particular box, this site copyright box, this is controlling this copyright statement right here. By default, Weaver will automatically say copyright and the current year, and it'll update this automatically for you every new year that comes along, and then it links to the home page of your site using your blog title down in the bottom here. So I'm not really against the way this gets created by default, so I typically don't do anything to it. However, if you wanted to hide that copyright notice or to change it in any way, you do so by simply providing a new site copyright notice in this text box right here. And if for some reason you didn't want it to show up at all, just add this in and NBSP and with a semicolon on the end of it here, just like it is saying to do up here. This is actually HTML coding, encoding for a space. So if I save the changes with that, it will simply wipe it out on my live website. You can see now there's nothing being shown down there. But I don't have a problem with having that get displayed. I just simply did not want the powered by links to be showing up there. Oh well, there's a new Weaver update is available. Weaver does update itself on a pretty regular basis from what I've seen over the years. Typically though, it might just be some kind of minor tweaking. It's not often that they will completely redesign the system or add or remove new features entirely. But you know, they do have some exceptions to that, like when it overwhelmed you at first, Will, but after learning how to control widgets and pages, excellent. Oh yeah, right. That I'll be showing you guys that tactic, how you can actually have certain widgets showing up on very particular pages of your site, but not other pages of your site. One of the reasons why I like to use this particular plugin, and again, something I'll be getting to in a future class for you guys. Now, beyond these basic settings here, one last thing I wanted to point out. You have all of these other settings in this theme where it is grayed out, and it says Pro version right here. pretty much any page that you go to in here that have a lot of available settings for you, but they might have very particular things here and there that are simply limited to the Pro version. The Pro version of Weaver 2 is a commercial theme. It's something that you would actually have to buy. However, I've never used it. I personally find Weaver, the free version, to already do more than enough that I need it to be able to do. I've never found myself absolutely needing one of these Pro version features of this theme before. So I at least wanted to point that out to you guys. I'm not recommending this theme to try to get you to buy the commercial version of it. I'm not even connected with the developer. I don't even really know who the guy is. So it's seriously just about, I love using this particular theme, and I wanted to pass it along to as many of you as I could. So the next thing that I want to point out with this particular theme, in addition to all of these options that you have available here, you also have over here in the sidebar, you could set a background or a header image for the theme. I go over to this header image section. You can see that this has the keyboard header image set up by default. I could change it to one of these other default ones that are showing up here if I wanted to, by simply selecting on one of these and saving my changes. Or I could upload my own image, and it gives you these suggested dimensions right here. But if you have something that's close to that size and not exact, it will let you not necessarily resize your picture, but you'll get to select this exact dimension worth of an area from that particular picture to use as your header image if you upload your own here. This theme is awesome. I'm glad you like it, Brenda. Hope it can help out with, I mean, it's not just great for creating these Amazon affiliate sites. I create almost every website that I build these days using WordPress and this particular theme. All of my plugin websites, for example, are all using this particular theme. I like being able to use one theme throughout all of my sites. That way, you know, you don't have to get familiar with one theme for one site and a theme for a different site, and thinking you could do something with that theme and maybe figuring out at the last minute, oh, that was a theme on another site of mine or something. So yeah, practice makes perfect. Exactly, Brenda. I just kind of like to stick with the one thing and get really familiar with it, and then feel like I can progress through work using that theme on new sites really easily. Let's see, Will, do I find myself using different features all the time, or do I tend to use the same features? It kind of depends, really. I guess it really just depends on what I'm trying to go for on a particular site. All the theme settings basically are just designed to help you control the way the site looks. So I'll try to picture what I want my site to look like before I actually build it, and you know, kind of use that as a mental roadmap, so to speak, when putting together my own site. And so I don't necessarily use the same features all the time. I've probably used features from every single one of these different tabs here. Most of these in the main options here, most of the ones that you'll find yourself using are the color ones. You know, to change text colors, and like on this page, if you don't like this background color that's being used here, you could set that to be something that perhaps allowed the site to, stand out a little bit more. Change the background color to a darker background color and make the actual white of the site pop out at you more. So, it's really just kind of dependent upon what I'm doing. The settings that I use here definitely change from one site that I build to the next. Right, Ruben, this theme does have a lot of features that are found in like paid themes. But obviously without the price, the word perfect of themes. I like that. Well, yeah, it definitely grows on you after you use it more and more. So, you may want to just simply go through and play around with some of the settings that are here. I could probably sit here and talk about Weaver settings for a couple of hours, honestly. One that I kind of like is like rounded corners. Sometimes I will find myself using. This actually just rounds the corners of your actual website here. So it's not just a block sitting in the page. There's some other things like wrap the site with a shadow here is another one. If I use the rounded corners or something, I'll often find myself using the shadow. You really can't even tell that it's there with this darker colored background though. With a lighter colored background, you can see a shadow around it. So, just play around with them, see what some of these different themes do. It really does quite a few different things here. Let me flip back over to this header page here. For this particular site, I'm not going to use a header image. I could use one, and it kind of depends from site to site. There are some sites where I have used a custom header image, but you don't have to use one. You don't have to feel like you have to go out and hire a graphics designer to, build a header image or a logo or anything for your site. So I just remove the header image. I click on the Remove Header Image button, and then I can simply refresh my page, and it wiped that out for me. Personally, I feel like this helps to eliminate a lot of the vertical space that people need to get through to get to my actual content, and also feel like it helps to maintain the focus on the content that I'm building on my site here, so people aren't getting distracted by flashier things like a header image or a logo and things like that. This also helps to keep my text right here being on my actual site. If you use a header image here and you don't show the blog title and the tagline up top here, you're not getting those additional keywords included in the content of your page. So it won't look like your page is starting with Down Comforter Guide. It'll be starting with an image, and Google can't really pick the text out of an image. So in that regard, another reason I like to just simply go for the text instead. But if there's a situation where you could find a good header image that fits along with whatever your target niche is, there's nothing wrong with using it. Just try not to use something that is so distracting and eye-catching that that's really all you can focus on when you visit the site. So beyond the theme, once I have that set up how I want it to be, I proceed on to plugins again. I'm going to return to this plugins page. Now, I'm going to be installing a number of different plugins on this particular website as I proceed through the creation of this site. However, I'm not going to sit here and talk about every single one of those plugins. I feel like it could get a little bit confusing if I were to try to go through all of that right here in the beginning, because most of it is not necessary to actually start creating my site. A lot of the plugins that I use on a site will really get used later on, once my site is almost completed or even after it is completed. Yes, Michael, you could name your header image the same as your blog title and tagline if you use a header image. One more thing real quick worth pointing out that I could do. Let's say I have a header image that I'm using, but maybe it's not, you know, a solid picture like this. Let's say I just have like a little logo that's in the corner and the rest of it is white. Instead of having my blog name and the description actually built into the header image, I could just leave a big white space in this particular header image when it was being created, and leave that white space for my blog title and my tagline. So, for example, I'm going to add this back to my site here just so you can see what I'm talking about. Now, you see how the blog title and the tagline shows up above the header image right here? You can change that with Weaver settings right here. You have right here, this is under the main options and header tab. Just go down to site title and tagline, and then you can simply move the title over the header image, and down here you can move the tagline over the header image. If for some reason you did not want them showing up at all, there's also a setting right here to completely hide the site title and the tagline, and you can even make it different for phones, for example. But with these two checkboxes right here for the header image or for the title and the tagline over the header image right here, if I save these settings and return to my live page, you can now see that the text is getting, why did Windows Explorer just crash? You can see that it is being displayed over top of my image now. And if you wanted to make any adjustments to this, you know, let's say from here where my mouse pointer is at all the way over to the left, let's say all this was blank white, and let's say I just had a logo sitting here on the right. Obviously, this text sitting where it is and getting displayed how it is getting displayed wouldn't really look that great. You'd have a ton of white space down below it, and it's, you know, shoved up here in the top left-hand corner, basically. You can also use these settings here to help you make some adjustments to that. The title position right here, you can change this, just use different values for these particular settings and adjust where it gets shown up. So it tells you what the defaults are. Default is X of 7% and Y of 1%. So if I wanted to make it show up further out, for example, I could do something like an X of 15% and a Y of 10%. And if I refresh the page, you can see that moved it a lot further out here. So I could simply just make some adjustments to that to get it to show up wherever it was that I was looking to get it to show up. And the same thing with the tagline right here. You can also set the position of that. And they even give you a font size box here for both the title and the tagline. So you could kind of create a combination of a header image and still use the actual text there, so it could be indexed by a search engine. You're quite welcome, Michael. I do that on a lot of my sites as well. When I do use a header image, not all the time, but a lot of times, I will find myself using that particular technique. I'm going to hop back over here to the plugins now. As I was saying before, I have a lot of plugins that I will use on one given Amazon affiliate site, but I don't necessarily get all this installed and set up at this particular point in the process because I don't need everything right now. In particular, my Amazon plugins that were included as part of this coaching program, you don't have to install those right now. And in fact, I will actually be covering this in the 9th class of this series, if I'm not mistaken, once the site is completely finished. And then I will simply go in and add my plugins into it and add the Amazon advertisements to the site. So particular plugins like that I will be discussing at a later point in time in this particular class. But for now, I have some initial plugins that I want to get set up on this site to start out with. And these are free plugins as well. The only commercial plugins or anything that I recommend are my own commercial plugins in this coaching program, because that's what I use to build my own Amazon sites. So all you have to do is click on the Add New button that was at the top. You can also reach this by going to Plugins and Add New over here in the sidebar. And this allows you to simply search for free plugins. And you can really find free plugins out there for a wide variety of different things. It's not just for these particular things that I'm pointing out. You can see they have all these popular tags that are used for plugins, but even beyond that, you can search a ton of other keyword phrases in this box right here to find different kinds of plugins. To start out with, I want to install one called SEO Ultimate. This particular plugin, you can see it listed right up at the top here. This is my SEO plugin that I like to use on pretty much any site that I built. This is not my plugin, by the way. This is something that's been around for years. A lot of people may already be familiar with a plugin called All-in-One SEO. If you already use that and you're familiar with it, please feel free to continue using All-in-One SEO. I don't necessarily claim that SEO Ultimate is any better than All-in-One SEO. I think it's just a matter of personal opinion, and I happen to have been using this particular plugin for many years, and I get good search rankings using it. So, you know, if it's not broke, why try to fix it? So I simply continue to use this particular plugin because it doesn't do me wrong. So all I have to do is click on this Install Now link right here, and this will get the plugin installed on my site, and then I just have to click on the Activate Plugin button. And this automatically activates and makes the plugin run on my site. That same process can really be repeated for any other plugin that you want to install through this system, and potentially even for different plugins that you may have purchased and you need to simply upload, for example. On the Add New page, if you don't want to search for a plugin, you can just click on this upload link right here and just select the zip file that you have downloaded for a plugin. All of my plugins come in zip format, so you install those just through this page by uploading those zip files. Again, I'll be returning to that more in detail once I actually reach the class where I will be installing all of my Amazon plugins for you guys. So now that I have this plugin set up on my site, I'm going to return back to this plugins list here just because in the description of this plugin you can see that they actually have a whole bunch of links already created for me, and these links go to the different settings pages for this plugin. But you could also find most of these through the sidebar right here. The SEO menu, you hover over that and it opens up all of these additional menu items. But honestly, it looks like there's more in this description than what can be found over here though. One in particular that I always go and use immediately is the title tag rewriter. What I am looking to do here is this little blog tag. This blog tag represents the blog title on my site, Down Comforter Guide. So anytime this blog tag occurs in one of these text boxes, this plugin would ordinarily add that blog title onto the end of the titles of pretty much any page throughout my entire website. Personally, while I used to use this strategy and it worked fine, I kind of feel like nowadays Google views that as keyword spam. Especially if this is your primary keyword phrase for your site, Down Comforter Guide, you don't necessarily want that repeated in the title of every single page throughout your site. Seems pretty obvious to me, like that would instantly be keyword spam there. So what I'm looking to do is remove the blog tag and also the character symbol here and any spaces that are on the end of it from each of these particular lines. Now, the two exceptions to this are going to be all the way up at the top, the blog homepage title. Obviously, I want this to get set as my blog title. But then the rest of these, I want to wipe those out, and I will typically leave the blog title on one additional one down here, the 404 not found. I figure if a link on my page or if somebody goes to a page on my site and it's not found, I don't mind showing the blog title on those pages. And in fact, I'm really not planning on having any of these exist. So this one particular blog title being left here on this one, I don't typically mind here. So saving my changes here. This just ensures that anytime I create a page throughout my site, the title of that page is just going to be whatever I decide to set as the title of the page. Like when I'm creating a new page, you can see add new page, enter title here. Whatever my title is here is what the title will be on that page. It won't have additional text automatically added to it for me because of this particular plugin. So beyond that, in this particular plugin, there's really a lot of different aspects to this. Over on this modules page right here, you can see that each of these different items here, these are basically extra features that this particular plugin can do. And some of them are enabled by default and others are not enabled by default. If there is something particular that you don't want this plugin to do for you, you can simply disable it by clicking on the disabled button for any one of these. I actually will find myself using on at least some of my websites other plugins that may actually do the same thing that this plugin will do. It won't do everything that it'll do, but there may be one particular purpose. And just to show you what I'm talking about here, I'm going to go and install one additional plugin called Keyword Statistics. And this plugin will actually scan the content of the pages that I create on this site, and it will give me keyword density information for each of my pages of content. And I will often use this not to go for a specific percentage amount, and I'll actually get into talking about this a little bit more once we get on to content creation in a future class. But the main reason I'm using this is it just helps me to kind of double check what I'm doing. I want to make sure I'm not over spamming my targeted keyword phrases, and I also want to make sure that I'm using enough of particular keyword phrases that I'm trying to target. So I just want to make sure I'm not overdoing it or underdoing it, basically. And this plugin is one way that I can quickly gauge that type of information. So the reason why I wanted to point this out to you now is in this keyword statistics plugin here, you have different information that is automatically being generated by this plugin. You can see right here, meta tag configuration. It's serving a title tag for each of my pages. It's serving information for robots, keywords, description, and even my URLs here. Over here on this page, the description and the keywords and the meta robots and the title tag, all this stuff, and even my URLs up here, all this stuff is automatically taken care of by this particular SEO plugin. So the question is, why do I use this? Well, the only reason I actually use this particular plugin are for the keywords. This plugin will automatically detect the keywords that you are writing in your content and give you keyword density for them. Just to show you what I'm talking about here, now that this plugin is enabled, you can see the SEO settings right here for the title tag and the description. But in addition to that, I have this keyword statistics section right here, and this also does the title and the keywords and the description. So the only thing I'm interested in using this plugin for are my keywords, and it'll actually automatically generate those for me. I'm just going to punch in a little bit of text here so it has something to run off of, just so I can show you what I mean here. I come back down here and it counts my keywords that I have used, and you can choose whether you want stop words filtered out of it. You can choose your language. You can show up to 10 different keywords at a time instead of just 5 keywords if you would like to. And this really just helps you to, again, get a gauge for what it is that you're writing. You can automatically see what some of your main keywords are. In those couple of particular sentences, I was probably talking about Amazon affiliate plugins and SEO plugins. And if I scroll back up top here, that text is actually out of the ebook guide for tonight, which is talking about Amazon affiliates and SEO plugins. So you can see how this can help to essentially summarize the content of your page, but you can also use these densities. These are percentages. This says that the word plugin occurs 8.3% out of all of my words that are not stop words here. So I usually want these numbers to be below 5% for any keywords that I am actually trying to target. Otherwise, you get into keyword spam territory. But the whole point of all this was all of these keywords that are calculated here based on the content of my page, they're automatically inserted as meta tag keywords through this particular plugin. I don't have to type this out. It's all doing this for me automatically. But if for some reason I wanted to change this, all I would have to do is click on this checkbox box right here so it's not using the generated keywords, and then I could simply make changes to it, like the word really right here. That wouldn't really go along with it, so I could just delete that out and use the remaining keywords, for example. And this update button right here is if you make some changes to your content and you don't have it automatically updating this information. You just update it with this particular button right here. So since this plugin creates these meta tag keywords for me, and it's inserting that information into the HTML coding of my page, then I actually do not want for the SEO plugin to control those meta keywords, so I could simply have that disabled here. If for some reason I wanted to use the description, you can see right here this description gets automatically populated for me. It tries to pick out a portion of your content that includes some of your most heavily used keywords right here. So that is why this particular part of two different sentences really is being shown as my description automatically. But this will not end up in the HTML code or on search engines, for example, because I have this description disabled right here in the keyword statistics plugin. Instead, I am using the SEO plugin, and I have the description enabled on this plugin. And so if I wanted to actually set the description, this would be done up here in the SEO settings with my title tag and my description right here. So I at least wanted to point that out to you, why you might actually want to have some things disabled, or what particular purpose that would actually get used for here, because it is something that I will commonly find myself doing on my own sites. Now, again, there are a number of other plugins that I will find myself using on these sites, but it's not something that I necessarily need to have set up initially before I'm creating my content. The SEO plugin is going to, actually modify the HTML coding of my live web pages, and in a way that's going to help me get better search engine rankings. So I definitely want stuff like that to be enabled before I'm creating the content. But again, other plugins like your advertising plugins, for example, can be added to the site later on once you actually need to be using them. But then in addition to the Amazon plugins and the ones that I've shown you tonight, there are a few other random plugins that I use that I'll be discussing throughout the course of this particular series. Things like a Google XML sitemap generator that will be connected with Google Webmaster Tools. So those particular plugins, I will again be discussing those once I get to the relevant part of the class to actually talk to you about those, because each of those I'll be going into kind of a little more in-depth because I'm using them for a very particular purpose. And so I wanted to actually be able to take the time to do that and thought that would be best done simply spread out in different classes instead of lumping it all into one here. What do I think about Robot 3 plugin? I'm not familiar with that, Clinton. Is that like a content generation plugin? Not talking about like WordPress robot, are you? Content generation. I'm not familiar with it. My general stance on any kind of automated content generation, or really even the use of any content that exists anywhere else besides on your website, it costs quite a bit. That's not the new one that like just came out, is it? Basically, I don't put a lot of faith in automated or duplicated or even spun content for that matter, simply because, okay, it's been out a while. I feel like when people use that type of software, they kind of get a little bit blinded by it and think that it's going to do everything for them, I guess, to the point where, oh, it created me this website with all this content on it. You know, why do I actually need to add more content to it or write my own unique content to it? And so in that regard, I think a lot of people simply just buy software like that and use it for whatever it will actually accomplish. But the end result is essentially the same kind of website or the same information that would be pulled up on another website if you were using it using that same software and perhaps typed in some of the same keyword phrases or whatever the case would be. Even if it could, and I know there are some software titles out there that will take that content and try to mix and match it or make it unique in some way each time that it generates it, it's ultimately still just respun content in one way or another. And if your website is 100% made of that kind of content, I can't possibly fathom it getting search engine rankings. And if for some reason it does, chances are a year from now it won't have those rankings still, because somebody will come along, Google will make an algorithm change and, you know, get rid of that loophole. Ultimately, Google and automated content don't mix. It's the opposite of what they're looking for in a website. So even if you could trick Google and get number one on the highest keyword phrase in existence, if you're not giving them what they're looking for, you're not going to stay in those rankings forever. And so in that regard, I try to simply build a site that Google is looking for, and that typically means either creating completely unique content for your entire site or at least having a nice base of unique content on your site. And in that regard, if you build the unique content on your site and then wanted to add additional content to it using some of those automated content creators or article spinners or whatever the case would be, that I feel like is a more realistic approach to using that kind of stuff. But I think too many people really kind of get blinded by it and think that it's just going to do it all for them, and then they just end up with a bunch of websites sitting there that nobody ever visits and ultimately aren't really useful to anybody. So personally, I do not use automated or duplicated content in 99% of the situations in the websites that I have. But I still am confident that as long as enough unique content is being used, you could still use additional duplicate or automated content along with it. Just put your unique content like at the top of the page and have all the rest of the junk below it. That way the unique content is what is getting focused on by the search engines that are coming through and indexing the content of your pages. You're quite welcome, Clinton. Hope that was helpful. Are there any additional questions that some of you may have for me tonight? Please feel free to ask me anything you would like about anything I've covered in tonight's class, or even anything that I've covered in previous classes. If for some reason you watched the video from last week and maybe you came up with some questions between last week and this week, please feel free to shoot those out at me here. I don't mind at all. Michael is asking, just so other people don't feel lost during this, is asking if I want to name my database after the domain name, instead of using the default database naming structure that WordPress creates it as. He's asking if that would be a manual install, and do I have to make the tables for the database? That would be a manual install. I'm trying to think of whether any automated installations give you the option of changing that. Technically, you could use an automated option and go in and manually make those changes, Michael. But the easiest way would likely be to simply do a manual installation. The actual process for doing a manual installation is something that I covered in the first class of the Techie Masterclass series, and you guys should have access to that, but just in case, there is a link to that page where you can access the ebooks and the videos from that Techie Masterclass. The first class there, on the control panel, I demonstrate a manual WordPress installation there. And during that, you can actually change the name of the database that is getting created. The other option, though, Michael, beyond that, is, let's say, like for this site that I just created, if I wanted to go back in and set that up to run on a custom database name, what I would actually do is go to the control panel here. Why is this taking so long to load? Did my site break down or something? Okay, there it goes. Just took it a minute. What I would do here is right here you have this PHP myadmin. I've changed my password for this. The question is it within reach? One moment, guys. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm locked out of my own site. Okay, I'm sorry. I have the wrong password written down for this site in front of me. I don't think it's within my reach. Anyways, it should be not too horribly difficult to do. All you really have to do is go into PHP myadmin here, and this gives you a listing of the different databases that you've created. And instead of changing oh, no, wait, you're probably talking about not just the database itself, but probably all the tables, like the actual prefix that's being used for the table names. If that's the case, I mean, you could go through and manually rename each of them through PHP myadmin here. But obviously the easier way would actually be to do a manual installation. But then in addition to that, the place where that information actually gets stored, if you went through and renamed everything on your database manually using PHP myadmin, for example, what you would do is come over here to the file manager, or this could also be done through FTP, for example, and I don't think I want to actually open this in this webinar with the recording going on, because this file right here, wp-config.php, this will actually contain your database information in it. So your database name, your database username, the password for it, and I'm pretty sure the table prefix is also stored in this particular file. So if you were to manually rename the database and/or the database tables in PHP admin, then you could simply come back over to the WP config file and edit this file and update those same changes in this file as well. And then you could return to your public WordPress site, and it would connect everything up properly for you there. I guess that was a little bit of a complicated explanation. Sorry about that. But you know, manual installation would definitely be the easiest way to go. And for an actual walkthrough of that, look in the first class of my Techie Masterclass series. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Clinton. I appreciate your comments as well. Meteor shower peaks, October 17th through 25th. Thank you, Stan. I like meteor showers. I work at night a lot of times, and so I will often go outside in the middle of the night and stare up at the stars, and so I probably see more of the stars than the average person does, which is why I confirmed that I do like astronomy, Stan. My wife got me a telescope for my birthday this year. I've never had one before that. That's been pretty cool. No, Michael, you don't have to do that. He's saying, do we set up or add our feed at FeedBurner or a feed service? The point of using something like FeedBurner and connecting it with the feed on your WordPress site is really more for somebody that would be using Google to monetize their site if they were using like Google AdSense instead of Amazon, for example. FeedBurner allows you to have Google AdSense ads automatically inserted into your feed, based off of your content there. It is something I'm familiar with and I have done on sites of mine before, Michael, but those were not Amazon sites. They were just content-based sites that use AdSense for monetization. So in that respect, I don't believe for Amazon sites that you would actually need to use FeedBurner unless there was a really particular reason that you wanted to do so. I know with FeedBurner you can kind of make some different changes to how your feed is actually displayed, and it kind of gives you a new address, and there are some different things that you can do with your feed after that point. But no, it's not part of my Amazon strategy though. But if for some reason you wanted to, like, I don't know, go back and convert one of these sites into an AdSense site at a later point in time, then I might actually then go through and add it into FeedBurner. I heard rumors they were talking about potentially shutting down FeedBurner or something, although I don't really know why they would do that. They paid a ton of money for that site. It's okay, Michael. You're not really that off track. I've talked to asked some of the people that are here from like my previous series. I got way off track on some of those. I'll talk about anything. I'll talk about my kids. I'll talk about being Irish. I'll talk about, I don't know, all kinds of stuff that have nothing to do with marketing. I typically try to make sure I don't get off track during the actual 2-hour portion of the class, to ensure that I'm delivering what I'm supposed to be delivering. I don't want you to feel like I'm trying to burn time just talking about myself or something like that. But there have been a lot of classes where I've sat around for like an hour, or even an hour and a half afterwards, just essentially talking nonsense completely unrelated to anything marketing, and I don't mind. I have fun with it sometimes. Will. Ruben, would I recommend using skim links for additional ad revenue on an Amazon site? Not really, or at least not in most situations, Ruben. Obviously with any Amazon site that you're building, you could potentially monetize the site in a number of different ways. You have your obvious Amazon ads, but then you could, do things like skim links or even Google AdSense. You can have Google AdSense and Amazon on one site together and earning money on both of those networks. But I guess the thing is, What I am kind of cautious about when it comes to using multiple networks on one single site is I want to be sure that they're not kind of competing against each other. If I'm building these Amazon sites to try to refer Amazon sales, I don't want to lose my targeted traffic that I've gotten to my site through advertisements. Have a good night, Clinton. See you next week. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Have a great night. The different networks that you're using, you don't want to essentially distract your traffic from what their purpose is. If you want them to complete a sale on Amazon, you don't want to be losing some of that traffic through AdSense or skim links or, other things. Beyond that, though, something else to consider, because you're like, well, I would still make money if they clicked on an AdSense ad or a skim link ad. But I guess what you really need to consider is if you're just starting out, first of all, and beyond your advertising essentially competing with each other, what I always consider is for a first-time site builder, if you have no other sites out there that are generating money for you on either Amazon or skim links or AdSense, for example. What is skim links payout minimum? I know with AdSense at least, I'm pretty sure they still have that at $100 for the payout minimum. I guess what you would also need to consider is how long would it take to reach payout minimums on multiple networks if you just run one website and essentially split your revenue up amongst multiple networks. So you don't just have all of your money coming in through Amazon, you have some of it on Amazon and some of it on AdSense, some of it on skim links, or whatever the case may be. So a lot of people, when they're first starting out, I feel like will try to promote too much. They'll try to use too many different affiliate networks, and they might be making $100 a month on a site, but if they're using 5 different networks and it's spread out amongst those networks and they all have $100 payout minimums, then it might actually be 5 months before I saw any money from a site like that. So in that regard, I would kind of just recommend to try to be cautious in terms of what you're using all on the same site, just so you're not kind of delaying getting money into your pocket, especially if it's your first site and that first check hitting your pocket. It can be a really big motivation boost to continue on with more work. So if you don't get that payment till 5 or 6 months down the road, even if it's $500 instead of $100, who's to say that you haven't given up during that time just waiting on those payments to come in? But for somebody that's running a ton of different sites where they could easily hit the minimum every single month on every different network that they use, obviously it's not really something they have to worry about in that regard. But I would still be concerned about whether my advertising was competing with each other, which on my sites at least, most of my Amazon sites, I'd probably say 90% or better, have nothing but Amazon advertisements on them. I don't use other affiliate networks. But if you have an Amazon site that fails, for example, let's say you get a lot of traffic to a site and whatever you're promoting on Amazon, let's say it's just not converting for whatever the reason may be. Maybe it's in a retail store for a cheaper price or something. You don't have to just say, well, this site is dead. You could switch it over to a monetization method that doesn't require an actual purchase, using something, more like AdSense, where you get paid just from clicks. There are examples in my past where I have done things of that nature, where I have just said, okay, this just really isn't working out for an Amazon site like I thought it was going to, and so instead of just trashing the site, or instead of just letting it sit there and make nothing, then I'll just switch out my advertising for something where maybe I could attract some clicks on it, and have actually successfully turned sites that were doing nothing into profitable sites that way. Michael, let's see, he's asking, if we set up 3 baby accounts at HostGator and put one site on each plan, would that act like different Class C addresses for backlinking? Typically, no. Usually your C address on a server will typically be the same throughout an entire hosting company, unless they happen to have special plans that allow you to get a server on different Class C addresses. What I would really recommend to do, if you want to get different hosting accounts that would be on different servers, for those of you that don't know what a Class C address is, for example, basically it's kind of a general gauge on your server location, so to speak, like what group it is in. So like a lot of times, a lot of the HostGator servers will be on one Class C address, and another hosting account might have a different one. But there's honestly exceptions to pretty much all those rules. You have a lot of hosting accounts that have hosting companies that keep their servers sitting side by side with another company, basically. So if that is something, you might have to actually pay a little extra for it to get something specifically for that purpose, Michael. Another option is to just go to Google and to search out what the different hosting companies have, and try to pick a couple different hosting companies that had different Class C addresses there that you could use for setting up different accounts. And again, this is for the purpose of backlinking that Michael's wanting to do it. The reason why is because Google could potentially look at your links as being spam links if they're essentially located on the same server or in the same group of servers, basically. It's kind of a way to say that these two sites aren't connected or associated whatsoever. And then you link them up, and then that backlink is supposed to hold more importance, essentially. But not something for the rest of you that may just be overhearing, not something that you have to worry about. Backlinking is kind of a more minor part of my entire strategy. I more focus on the content itself. But if you did have sites that you wanted to interlink like that, and you didn't want Google to know that those sites were associated with each other, then you would want to make sure you're on a different C class there. You put text into the footer widget and it's giving wonky results, Will? You're talking about in the theme here? In the footer copyright box, or are you talking about actual footer widgets in the theme? There are a lot of Amazon sites, Ruben, that use skim links. I think it's it's a potentially good option. But again, I think a lot of those sites are in existence because I'm trying to think of who it was. I'm wanting to say that there was a marketer, an Amazon marketer, that came out with a system on, Amazon and skim links and stuff like that, which could very well be the reason why you might be seeing those. Not something required. Yeah, if they don't shut you down for Google AdSense, they do have some issues with that some of the time. Okay, good to know, Ruben. Ruben's saying Skimlinks is only a $10 payout minimum. I don't actually, I have an account there, I want to say, but not something I use on a regular basis. But he's saying Skimlinks is only a $10 minimum, so that's not as bad. Amazon, if you're in the U.S., for example, and on Amazon.com, you get $10 payouts. I think if you live in other countries, it's higher, maybe even $100 on Amazon, possibly. I don't know the rules for other countries beyond my own that horribly great, I guess. You're quite welcome, Michael. I don't mind the questions at all. Let's see. What about siloing our site? I actually like to plan out my site ahead of time and set up my site and then just build my content, kind of to make it a more natural approach. I don't really do the siloing approach in most cases, at least, Michael. When I'm going for more of a content-based type of site, at least. How can you neutralize the HTML to show you pure text? Well, from what? It's not I don't know if there's an easy way to do that except to simply put that HTML code on a web page, and then you could view the web page and simply select all the text that actually gets shown and copy it, and you'll get rid of all the formatting and stuff if you just go and paste it into a notepad file, for example. You won't have any HTML or special designing or stuff like that there. The links in your footer are repeating URL before each link. Like it's in there twice, like more than it should be, or are these like custom menu links that you've created in WordPress? Or send me a link for that if you don't mind, Will. I can I'll take a quick peek at that like after I close the webinar down and get back to you, so I don't have to pull up your site here publicly and on the recording.